In 2002, Los Angeles Police Chief Charlie Beck joined forces with Connie Rice, a civil rights lawyer who'd been suing the LAPD for years. And they did something very special and unusual. They put aside their differences and decided to work on what they called community safety partnership units. These were, in their words, made up of, quote, humane, compassionate, culturally fluent cops who have a mindset of respect, do not fear black men, and serve long enough to know residents' names and help improve the neighborhood. Earlier this summer, those two published an op-ed in the New York Times looking back at what turns out to have been a very successful program. Come to Watts in East Los Angeles, they wrote. Here, officers call out residents' names and greeting and patrol on foot with gang intervention specialists. The officers earn trust by participating in everything from buying bifocals for older people to helping start a farmer's market and sports league for kids. Officers are not promoted for making arrests, but for demonstrating how they diverted a kid from jail or increased trust. Above all, they do not view residents of high crime areas as potential suspects or deportees, but as partners in public safety. And in this telling, this kind of policing made the communities that it came to much safer. In the first year, they wrote, the partnership unit posted the steepest crime reductions in the city and has sustained those drops ever since. For nearly 2 years after the start of the program, 3 housing projects that had once suffered several killings a year did not have a single murder. With me on stage right now are some of the people who make that happen on the ground level. Lieutenant Emada Tingirides, a site coordinator of the Community Safety Partnership.
Thank you.
Fernando Rejón. He is director of the Urban Peace Institute, which works here in LA and also has programs all across the United States. And Andre Christian. He is a gang intervention specialist. He grew up in the neighborhood, joined the Grape Street Crips as a teenager, was shot on 2 different occasions, lost family members to violence, and now is working every day to stop that same kind of violence in the community. And I was hoping we could start by each of you giving everyone a sense of just what does your job look like on a week-to-week level? What are you actually doing? How does it look at the ground level?
Let's start with you.
Yeah, let's start with you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Since this article was written, I've been promoted to lieutenant, so I'm no longer assigned to the Community Safety Partnership. However, I still have some oversight over it, and it's in my heart, so I continue to be involved in it by choice, not because I have to. And so what my daily duties look like now, I work 77th Street Division, which is in South Los Angeles, off 76 and Broadway, after working in Watts for close to 10 years. And my primary role is to ensure that we have resources in the community to help reduce the crime and respond to calls. But I kind of want to put that aside and talk really about what my day-to-day duties were when I was overseeing the Community Safety Partnership. And really easily, it was just to listen, to understand the culture of the community that we were working in, and to help bring change. And the change was already occurring in the community because of people like Andre. I'm so used to calling him Lowdown, but I'm trying to be professional today. Lowdown, who I consider like a brother. And I think what's really compelling and interesting about the start of this program was the fact that we did it with a civil rights attorney. A civil rights attorney that held LAPD accountable, who was willing to work side by side with us to help change the culture of how we work in the communities. And I don't like saying how we police in the communities because that's such a abrupt term. You police this community, you police this community. I love this community, I grew up in this community, and I choose to give back in this community. And Connie Rice gave us that platform to be able to help select the officers that wanted to understand the culture of the community and begin to make change at a level with gang intervention. Willing to hear Connie Rice tell us where the ghosts were buried, explain to us why the community doesn't like law enforcement. And then law enforcement being able to say, we're sorry. We're sorry for the pain. We're sorry for the hurt. We're sorry for the misunderstandings. I want to humanize you, and in turn, I expect you to humanize me. And when we can get forgiveness and humanize each other, then we can start to make change. And that's what this partnership is. And that's what this program was all about.
So the Urban Peace Institute, we began in August 2015. We spun off from our larger civil rights organization called the Advancement Project a year ago. With that, we created the Urban Peace Institute. So my day-to-day, back in 2007, we released a report called A Call to Action, and it was a 30-year audit on the war on gangs. In the end, it came to say this: look, the war on gangs didn't work. There's more gang members than ever. Even though violence was going up and down, there was the ebbs and flows, you still had more gang members than ever before. And we estimate about, FBI has, I think, a conservative estimate, but about 200,000 gang members in the LA County region, right? So out of 10 million people. A lot of our work, we have a criminal justice and juvenile justice reform work that we do, led by Josh Green, an attorney, staff attorney. We have a number of staff attorneys in our office. We do place-based work in Watts and Ramona Gardens, working with community residents to build community safety collaboratives to begin addressing the ways to deal with violence. We also provide technical assistance up and down the state of California and across the country on how to implement violence reduction strategies, and also train law enforcement on a lot of the things that Lieutenant Tingirides was talking about, which we call relationship-based policing. Also to train street outreach workers or gang intervention workers. So since 2010, we've trained all city contracted gang intervention workers through the Los Angeles Violence Intervention Training Academy. Part of our role is to help maintain the strategy, develop it, but also maintain the integrity of gang intervention, making sure that gang intervention does not get pulled into really the hands of law enforcement, and make sure that they maintain their integrity so that they can work to serve the community while not crossing the line into the line of criminality. And so a lot of our work is around policy, it's around training, providing technical assistance, but also building partnerships and organizing with various sectors of the community, whether it be county, city, on the ground, in the housing developments, in different neighborhoods, Latino, African American, in order to make sure that the strategy is fully integrated and that all sectors are touched and all sectors are a part of it.
Andre.
Boy, I don't have too much to say after that right there. I disagree with everything they said. But it really make a big difference. My day-to-day is dealing with undiagnosed mental illness. Because as I talk to people and getting off into their mindset, you start seeing your gang members, your people that's undiagnosed, you start seeing that there's a lot of problems inside their head. So you have to basically turn yourself back into one of them again. So my day-to-day basis is just talking and getting into people's mindset, because a lot of times they have stuff that happened in their past. They haven't had positive role models. So you have to shoot them something positive. You got to let them know the police not your enemy. You know, you got good officers out there, because that's what make a difference. With Emada on the scene, Commander Tingirides on the scene, leadership plays a major role in what we do. They let us give community events, you know, bring cars together, low rides together and stuff like that. But through that right there, your relationship build. The cars is just bait. So you get people in the room like this right here together. You seeing people that was in jail together. They was in juvenile hall together. They just haven't seen each other because they all in their own little designated corners and stuff like that. But with the officers giving us that platform where we can bring them all together, not one thing happened. You have hundreds of people together. And I'm not talking about the burning rubber and the donut people they be talking about on the news. I'm the one to just sit there and talk and conversate. But, you know, my day-to-day basis is basically just talking and I move. I don't just stay in one area. I'm in Watts, I'm from Watts, but I move around now. And what I started finding out, I was like a sophisticated gang member because I was doing everything in my community. So as I start stretching and going into different communities, I start finding like it's different men just like me in other communities. So now I'm building like that. I still work in Watts all the time, but I'm not isolated to just Watts. Now I'm going in different communities and just abstracting from that right there.
And you've watched this, this attempt to build community in these places and build good relationships with law enforcement through a period that's had a lot of change nationally. So now we have everyone with a phone, with a camera, and things going on YouTube of controversial, anything from police killings to interactions all over the country, and also the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. How have those national phenomenon affected the work that you do locally?
You know, sometimes, you know, it'll come kind of hard on me, stressful when something happened, and whether it's in another state, then they try to blame the whole world, every police officer, for what one police officer did. And I have to flip that script. What if they blame every gang member for what one gang member did? Then you have your mouth poked out. So I always got to flip them and let them see the other side of that right there. So it just don't be that attack. You can't blame what happened in this other state. Not saying it was right. I'm still sensitive. If you did something wrong, you need to be held accountable for it. But don't be sitting up here making our community bad because of what happened over here in Chicago. We got it going peaceful right now. Now, if something happened in Canada, here, there, don't come tearing up, oh, talking about the police, this. Don't do that right there, because you got them sitting there where they respect us now to the point, if they see a crowd over here, they might come talk to me and say, what's going on? How's it going? Oh, everything going all right. But they know if I'm there, it's not no violence going on. It's not nobody doing nothing, have no business, versus the police jumping out, put your hands on you, going through that whole search and kicking your legs and all. We missed that because now we have a professional understanding where we can talk. I'm not finna stand here and let nothing go on like that. If something around here, believe me, I definitely don't know nothing about it because I'm not gonna be around nothing like that. I'm gonna isolate myself somewhere else. So you know, if I'm around this section right here, it's not nothing but peace going on, the conversation that I'm talking about.
Lieutenant Tingirides, what are the challenges of staffing one of these units from the police officer perspective? What kind of attributes do you look like? Do you have a waiting list, or is it hard to find people? How do you do it?
So just to give a little context of what the program is, we started in Watts in the public housing developments. So we have 10 officers and a supervisor assigned to Nickerson Gardens, which is the largest public housing development west of the Mississippi. It's got 1,054 units in it, and within those units you have anywhere from 4 to 6 people living in them. So it's very densely populated, low socioeconomic, and just people really trying to live and work day to day and raise a family. So we have officers in Nickerson Gardens, Jordan Downs, Imperial Courts, Ramona Gardens in East LA. We're now in Pueblo del Rio in Newton Division, and we're also in Avalon and Gonzac. So we have 67 officers that have been trained by Urban Peace Institute, trained in such things as policing the teen brain, so that the officer understands why youth do what they do in the community, understanding post-traumatic stress and how someone whose stress has not been evaluated or been cured, why they're gonna puff up their chest when they come across a cop. And it's not because they hate the cop, but it's because they're angry. Or mom's out prostituting and dad's in prison and no one's showing me love, so screw you. And so some of the training and the work that we've done with gang intervention, these officers, and every officer goes through training. I heard recently in the media that we only go through 6 months of training and then they give us a gun. That couldn't be furthest from the truth. We are constantly training. We're constantly looking for different ways to try to learn and understand the community. And so it's hard, first, because our department is so short on resources. We're policing a huge city with very little resource. But the chief of police decided to invest the officers into these public housing developments. One, because it was the right thing to do, and there were other communities that had police resources, but not as much crime. And this community had been ignored for so long that we deserve to get the resource to make a difference and make a change. And that was extremely important. The second thing is finding officers who are willing to work in one area and commit. We asked the officers to commit to 5 years. An officer chooses to work in the community. They don't just get out of the academy and they say, you're gonna go there. You have a choice. So we have officers that want to work in the community. And then what's really extremely important about the resources, and I know you're looking at me like my time's up. What's really important about the resources is 67 officers assigned to this densely, highly crime area, and the fatigue and the overload that the officers might get from carrying the burden of really becoming engaged in these families, and the stress and the post-traumatic stress that those officers might have in doing that sort of job, right? So it takes a lot of resource, a lot of training, a lot of mental health, a lot of partnership with outside resources that can provide that training and insight for us. And quite frankly, I think we should have a CSP zone throughout the entire city, but it's really hard to get the resources when we also have to respond to the everyday needs of the community.
Absolutely. Fernando, this is taking place in the context of a historically black neighborhood that's shifted in demographics over the years with more and more Latino families coming in. These are communities with different relationships, historically with the police, with language barriers sometimes.
Absolutely.
What's the difference between outreach, if any, in these communities, and is it working equally well with the black community and Latino community, or is there a gulf? Is there a challenge there?
I think there's some challenges with the Latino community, connecting with the Latino community. A lot of times because of whether it be immigration status or history, right? So for example, in Ramona Gardens, there's a lot of history there. And if you were to ask the local neighborhood there, who's your number one enemy, they'll say the LAPD. They won't name another gang. Their number one enemy is LAPD because of the history of what's happened in those housing developments and the relationship that they've had. So there are definitely some challenges, implementing community policing program or relationship-based policing program in more kind of entrenched gang neighborhoods in the Chicano communities here in LA. There are different approaches as well. So like in Watts, it's about 70% Latino. A lot of people don't know that. So there is an invisible population that maybe people don't necessarily see, right? African American community, well established, organized, a lot of civic engagement, and integrated, where you might have more Latino families that are more isolated from the system because maybe they haven't been here a long time, or even, particularly in East LA, they could be there for 3 or 4 generations, but still isolated from the system, as a lot of African Americans have historically been as well. And so the policing approach is different. And I think we've seen it in Watts, where there's been organizing. There's things like the Watts Gang Task Force. There's things like Watts United that have come together and will actively engage and challenge law enforcement. With the Latino community, not necessarily there yet. The Latino community would rather talk among themselves and are more, I think, more insular in many ways. And so there's a lot more. There's different challenges, and I credit Lieutenant Tingirides with creating this concept. She's like, it's beyond relationship-based policing. It's cultural policing. In order to police a community, and I don't care what country you're in, if you understand the culture and you respect it and you understand how it works, the networks, the chisme, the familia,
The drama.
you'll be able to police it more effectively. And so when a big part of our work is systems change. So Connie Rice, like you said, sued LAPD, sued the sheriff, sued everybody. She said she would dream up of how she would sue people in the shower every morning. But the thing is that in order to really implement these changes, right? So she said, I could get great, there's settlements, but my clients, it's not changing anything. So you have to engage the system. You have to engage law enforcement, and you have to engage communities that no one else really wants to engage, and create systemic transformation to deal with systemic violence. One of the key things of the Community Safety Partnership is that in order to get some of these officers to change the way they're doing their business and to get LAPD to embrace something different, is you change the incentives for promotion. If you don't focus on incentivizing arrest rates, right? Okay, our numbers are high, we made this many rates, but you incentivize building relationships with the community, or how you can demonstrate how you connected a kid who was about to get into the system or join a gang, how you connected them to a resource. And if you do that consistently, you will be promoted within the LAPD or within this law enforcement agency, because that's what we value. We cannot arrest our way out of this problem, and we know that. And so the way we're looking at it is, if you understand the culture and you lower the level of fear between communities of color and law enforcement, and you have LAPD or an agency that'll support that and understand it and give space to the community to at least talk, to come together, no community policing program is going to work if you don't invest in community. So you could put community policing officers out there, but if you do not invest and build up the capacity of the community that have been isolated for so many years and bring everyone together, like in Watts, black and brown, having conversations, then it's not going to work. And so that's a very critical piece to this strategy.
I could ask all of you so many more questions. I want to make sure we have time for questions from the audience.
Hi, my name is Roger Stewart. I'm from Loyola High School, where I teach social studies. And Lieutenant Tingirides, you said something earlier that I don't know that I've ever heard a police officer say. You said, "I'm sorry." And I think that those two simple words would make communities go a long way towards opening themselves up to trust. You also mentioned about reallocation of resources, and I know it's probably not as simple as moving them, but it seems like we're getting more resources into weapons and military-style equipment, and less into into community-based opportunities. And I don't think that the community-based has to just be in the worst of our neighborhoods, but it could be in all of our neighborhoods. I'd like that in my own. I'd love to know who, besides my lead officer, I'd like to know who some of the officers are that walk the beat. And I was wondering if you could just speak on some of that, particularly the trust issue.
I thought I was an expert in my job until I really immersed myself into Watts and let the community teach me. I grew up in Watts. My mom had me when she was 15 years old. I was in and out of foster care. I thought I knew something until I let my guard down as a police officer and let the community teach me and tell me how to make it successful. And part of that, again, is apologizing for something that I know I didn't do. I have 22 years on LAPD, and I've never shot or killed anyone. And but on the other hand, my husband has 37 years on the LAPD, and he did have to shoot and kill someone that shot at him with a shotgun. And so I understand the life and death of what we do and the dangers that we take, and I chose to do that because it's just in my heart and my soul, and I think that God led me to this career and to do this. And so saying I'm sorry, not for anything that I did, but for what this badge and this uniform represents to so many people, like Fernando mentioned in Ramona Gardens. And that's extremely important. And it's part of the humanizing that I talked about. What I think is really important with this national discussion with the controversial uses of force and the controversial shootings, everyone's Facebooking me, Emada, speak out, tell them LAPD's not all bad, tell them all cops that aren't bad. And I'm kind of sitting still and quiet because part of me knows there's so much more work to be done. But the other part of me knows that we're making an effort to apologize and humanize the community, but it's also the responsibility of the media and the community to learn how to humanize us. I have 6 kids. I'm having a bad hair day. I got gray going on right now. I don't know what I'm gonna make for dinner, and I'm a human being as well. And I think that's so important in learning how to heal a community and work together. The other thing I would suggest is, I was the senior lead officer for 6 years in Southwest Division, and we're territorial imperative, and we love our community, and we get out there and we do neighborhood watch. On the panel before me, they talked about the OGs. I am not successful by any means without this man right here. He can make me or break me. He can tell the community to calm down, or he can burn it down. I understand that. That's about respect. So any chance you get, if there's a police car driving by, hey, how you doing? Can you stop? Can I talk to you? We're your police department. We belong to you. You help us learn how to work in your communities the way that you want us to.
All right, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you.